Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the massive landscape of knowledge you've shared with us, distill the essential architecture, and really explain how things work.
Today we're diving into the mechanics of learning, and we're going way beyond, the simple textbook stuff.
We're focusing on the real constraints, the intricate systems that shape behavior.
Exactly. We're looking at biological limits, the influence of cognition, and then this meticulous, high-volume experimental work from pioneers like Forster and Skinner.
Right. So our mission today is to show you the astonishing precision with which behavior can be predicted. But we're going to start with the hook, I think.
Okay.
Which is the surprising fact that conditioning, even basic conditioning, isn't universal. It has rules.
And those rules are often cognitive. I mean, you think about classical conditioning, right? The bell and the shock.
Yet you just assume if they happen close together, the connection is made.
But it's not that simple. The brain is actively looking for reliable predictors, not just things that happen nearby.
So give us that classic example, the one with the tone and the shock.
Okay, so you have group one. The tone clearly overlaps with the shock.
And conditioning happens. The tone becomes a reliable signal for danger.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. With group two, you first expose them to a bunch of frequent random shocks.
So an unpredictable, dangerous environment.
Exactly. And then you try to pair the tone with the shock, and what happens?
I'm guessing the conditioning fails.
It fails completely because the organism has already learned that danger is just everywhere. The tone adds no new information.
So the brain essentially ignores it as useless data. It's not just passively linking events, it's calculating predictive power.
Precisely. And that idea that there's a cognitive assessment happening, it shows up even more clearly with something called latent learning.
Ah, the famous maze experiment. This one, for me, is the classic aha moment.
It really is. It shows that learning doesn't need an immediate reward.
So you have three groups of rats in a maze. Group one gets food every time they finish.
And they show that steady, smooth improvement, fewer errors each day.
Group two gets nothing, and, well, they just wander around. No improvement.
But then you have group three. For 10 full days, they run the maze and get absolutely no reward.
Nothing. So if you were just looking at their error rate, you'd assume they were learning nothing at all.
Just wandering aimlessly like group two. But then, on day 11, they introduce the food.
And their performance just skyrockets. The error rate plummets, immediately matching or even beating the group that was rewarded from day one.
Which is critical. It means for those 10 days, they were building a complete cognitive map of the maze. They had learned it.
They just weren't performing the skill until there was a reason to, until the motivation was there.
So they were holding back this knowledge, this entire map, until the incentive was right.
You could definitely see it that way.
Yeah.
The knowledge was acquired latently, but the performance needed a payoff.
And that gap, that space between what you know and what you do, is perfectly captured by how we learn just by watching other people.
Okay, so let's unpack observational learning. This is just acquiring a behavior by watching someone else do it.
Right. You don't need any skin in the game yourself. No direct reward or punishment.
And the classic experiment here, of course, is Albert Bandura's Bobo doll study.
With nursery school kids, yeah. They had different groups of children watch an adult model being aggressive with this inflatable doll.
And the key variable was the consequence for the adult.
Exactly. One group saw the adult get rewarded, another saw the adult get punished, and a third group saw, well, no consequence at all.
And the big insight was that no matter what they saw happen to the adult,
all of the children learned the aggressive behaviors.
Every single one of them. When they were given the chance later, they could demonstrate the exact same hits and throws.
But, and this is the performance kicker, the children who saw the adult get punished were much less likely to do it. Unless they were then offered their own reward to show what they'd learned, then they did it all, which just proves the point again.
Learning and performance are two different things.
Yeah, and you can see this so clearly in animals, this idea of imitation without, any deep understanding.
The source material had some great dog examples. There was Newton, this greedy dog.
Right.
He watched another dog, Tuffy, get a treat for performing a hug.
And Newton, seeing the reward, just immediately starts imitating the hug to get the food.
It's pretty unlikely he understood it as a gesture of love and friendship.
No, he just learned the simple equation. Hug equals treat.
Or Xena, the German shepherd who learned to open doors. She wasn't analyzing the physics of a latch.
No, she was just imitating the physical movement, moving her paws near the doorknob like a human hand. The shape of the action was enough.
And for us, for people, this isn't random. The source material lists specific factors that make it much more likely that you, the listener, will imitate a behavior.
And this list is so practical. First, obviously, we imitate people who get rewarded for what they do.
Simple enough. We also tend to copy people who have control over our lives.
Thanks.
Supervisors, parents.
Or people with higher social status. They're seen as successful models.
But the biggest one, the most potent factor, is context. When a situation is ambiguous or you just lack confidence.
That's when imitation goes through the roof. You start a new job. What's the first thing you do?
You scan the room, you watch everyone.
Exactly. Who gets praised? Who seems to be in charge? And you start mimicking their jargon, their posture, anything that seems correlated with success.
So we've seen that learning can be hidden, it can be observational, but how do we get to a point where we can track it with this almost alarming precision?
Well, that's where the mechanics come in. And that takes us to the massive undertaking by Forster and Skinner.
We are now entering the world of big data, but, 1950s style.
We really are. The book Schedules of Reinforcement is just this monument of data. Over 70,000 recorded hours of experiment.
And something like 250 million individual responses, mostly from pigeons.
The scale is just staggering. And to even make sense of that data, they needed a new piece of technology.
The cumulative recorder.
Which is, I would argue, one of the most important inventions in the history of psychology. It completely changed the game.
Because before that, you were just counting pecks, right? How many in a minute? You miss all the dynamics.
Totally. The recorder's genius was its simplicity. You have a roll of paper moving at a constant speed. That's your time axis.
And every single time the pigeon pecks the key, a pen moves up just a tiny little bit.
So the graph you get is the total number of responses over time. And the key insight is that the slope of that line,
The steepness
of the line is the rate of responding. You can see it change moment to moment.
It's revolutionary. You could directly visualize a pause, an acceleration, a steady pace. You didn't have to guess about inner processes. The behavior was right there on the paper.
And to get clean data like that, the experimental design had to be just bulletproof.
The pigeon key itself was a piece of engineering. Frosted plexiglass, a light touch contact, all designed so a bird could peck thousands of times a day without getting tired or hurt.
And they controlled motivation with incredible rigor. The pigeon's body weight was kept at about 80% of their free feeding weight.
Which sounds harsh, but it was necessary to make sure the food reward was consistently powerful enough to drive the behavior.
Right, and they'd use things like a timeout, a brief blackout in the chamber to stop responding during certain periods and isolate variables.
Well, this precision allowed them to discover these incredibly consistent behavioral fingerprints.
Which brings us to the schedules themselves. These patterns are so reliable, they're almost like laws of nature.
And the core logic here is so important. The animal doesn't just learn the pattern and then run on autopilot.
No, the pattern is actively maintained by the schedule itself. The schedule is constantly sculpting the behavior in real time.
Okay, so let's start with fixed ratio. FR.
Reinforcement here depends only on the number of responses. So FR 50 means you have to peck 50 times to get the reward.
Like piecework. 50 widgets gets you paid. And the pattern is unmistakable.
It's a super high, rapid, constant burst of responding.
Followed by a dead stop. A predictable pause right after you get the reward.
That's the hallmark of FR. They call it the post-reinforcement pause. You finish the quota, you take a break, and then you race through the next one.
This is so relatable. It's finishing a huge project at work, getting the praise, and then for 2 days you just can't bring yourself to start the next big thing.
Exactly. That's the FR pause. And this kind of performance, while fast, is actually pretty fragile. It's easily disrupted by new things in the environment.
Now contrast that with fixed interval, FI.
Here, it's all about time. Reinforcement is available after a set amount of time passes, say 5 minutes, but only after that time is up and you make one response.
And this schedule produces that iconic scallop shape on the cumulative record.
It's beautiful. You see almost zero responding right after the reward. The animal learns it's a waste of time.
And then, as 5-minute mark gets closer, the pecking starts to speed up and up and up.
Until it hits a high terminal rate right before the reward is available.
This is me checking my email for a reply I know is coming at 5 p.m. I don't check it all at 9 a.m., but at 4.55, I'm hitting refresh like a maniac.
That's a perfect analogy. That frantic refreshing is the terminal rate.
Okay, so last of the big three, variable interval.
This is where the reward is based on unpredictable time intervals. It's an average time, but you never know when the next one is coming.
And that unpredictability creates one of the most stable, steady behaviors you can find.
It's a high, uniform rate of responding that can go on for hours. One bird in the book emitted 87,000 responses in a single 14-hour session.
That is just incredible persistence. It's like checking social media. You never know when the notification will pop up, so you just keep a steady rate of checking.
And that Z pattern is incredibly robust.
Oh.
Unlike the fragile FR schedule, you could pre-feed a bird a ton of food and its response rate would barely change. It's a very tough habit to break.
So once they established these stable patterns, they could use them to demonstrate even more advanced control.
Right. They use things like multiple schedules to show how much the environment cues control the behavior.
Give us an example.
Okay, so they'd have a schedule like mult FI5 FR80. The pigeon has to switch between the FI scallop and the high rate FR run.
And the signal to switch is just the color of the key.
Exactly. Blue key means the reward is time-based, so do the scallop. Red key means it's quota-based, so race.
And I bet if they switch the colors.
The pigeon's behavior pattern flipped instantly. The external signal had total control.
Wow. They even tried to externalize the pigeon's internal sense of timing, right? With added stimuli.
Yeah, this is wild. They'd project a slit of light on the key. For FI schedules, the slit would get bigger as time passed and added clock.
And for FR, the slit would grow with each peck and added counter. They were trying to see if an explicit external signal was more powerful than the bird's own internal sense.
And even with all this control, behavior is still super sensitive to history and novelty.
Right. There was the example of the two experienced birds who came back after a 6-month break.
They were put back on their old FR schedule, but in a new apparatus, and their previously rock-solid, high-rate performance was just gone.
It fell apart. The novelty of the new environment, the time away, it was enough to break that ingrained pattern.
It eventually came back, but it just proves that behavior needs a consistent context.
And finally, you can even probe these patterns with drugs. The effect of pentobarbital on a variable ratio schedule is a classic case.
So after the injection, the bird just stops responding for about an hour and a half.
A sedative effect. Makes sense.
But then, once that wears off, something amazing happens. You get an excitatory phase, the bird starts responding again, but at nearly 8 responses per second.
Which was way higher than its normal rate of 4 or 5.
Right. The drug didn't just stop the behavior, it chemically modulated the pattern itself.
All of this history even affects how the behavior disappears, how it goes extinct.
Yeah, if you stop reinforcing a simple FI schedule, the behavior dies out in these messy bursts and long pauses. It fights it.
But if the training history was more complex, like a schedule that specifically reinforced responding slowly,
the extinction is much slower, much more of a gradual decline. The history determines how you quit.
So what does this all mean for you? I mean, the core insight here is that behavior is just exquisitely precise and predictable.
As long as you understand the contingencies, the schedule history, and the immediate consequences.
That pattern, whether it's the intense burst of FR or the steady grind of a Zix, isn't just a habit you learn. It's actively maintained moment to moment by the rules of the game.
Behavior is a function of the environment's rules. You change the rules, the behavior changes. It's that direct.
But let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. The discovery of all these patterns, these laws of behavior, depended entirely on one piece of technology, the cumulative recorder. It let them see behavior over time.
And when you think about our world now, think about the complex schedules that drive your attention, the variable interval of social media notifications, the fixed ratio of monthly work deadlines. How many of our own complex behaviors remain a mystery simply because we don't have the right tools to visualize the moment-to-moment influence of our own reinforcement schedules? What are we missing by only focusing on the count and not the rate?